So, better be pretty serious for this episode. And you can tell that because I've got the noir filter on, so I look like one of those 1950s how to survive a nuclear war public service announcements. Um, and I'd like to start with a little apology. I've got a podcast channel, as you obviously know. I've got 6 followers, which is, pretty amazing because I didn't expect any. But, I was thinking that if you have a podcast channel, if you have access to the internet and all of this technology that humanity spent the last several thousand years putting together, uh, you should use it to actually better humanity, right? So like the internet, we shouldn't just use it for, you know, cat videos and all that kind of stuff. We should actually use it to inform humanity and kind of make human civilization just a little better. Um, and I have failed in that. Um, I've been doing things on like, oh, how should you write, realistic science fiction, which is something I'm interested in. Is that making humanity better or not? I don't know. Um, I've been actually put in stuff with my book. I did an audio version of my book in some earlier, my first book in earlier version episodes. Is that bettering humanity? Probably not, to be perfectly honest. Um, but what I should have been doing, and that this came to me at 3 in the morning last night. What I should have been doing is using this platform, this technology that I've been gifted with by my ancestors, by everybody's ancestors in human society going back thousands of years. I should have been using this to address a very specific problem that has been hounding human civilization almost since its inception. And that is the danger that clowns have posed to human civilization throughout the ages. Now, I'm going to go ahead and preface this by saying, you know, these days, people tend to be pretty wary of clowns, and I think that's a good thing. It's kind of one of those examples of how we're advancing as a civilization and a species, I think. But back in my day, when I was growing up, Generation X, it was a simpler time. People were more naive, more likely to look at clowns and say, like, "Oh, look, he's got a freaking balloon coming out of his ass. Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah, yeah, yeah." They didn't actually understand the danger that clowns pose to everybody. In fact, I'll give you an example. First time I actually ran into a clown or saw a clown was at the county fair. They had a circus, and they drove out this little stupid car, and then they kept it was a clown car. It was a clown car gag, where they would run in and out of there. Well, I was like 7, and literally within 30 seconds I was like, I've seen that big fat ass clown before. They're just running in circles. And so they did this for probably like 30 minutes, and I was like, holy crap, this is like a do you think I'm a moron? This is a waste of my time, my attention, and my energy just to have to force me to watch this shit. And then it got worse because they decided to come up into the stands, to get into everybody's personal space. Like that was supposed to be hilarious. So back then, I realized there's something not right with this. It's like a parasitical energy on everybody's good humor and all that stuff because everybody was laughing, but kind of uneasily. So up to that point, we were having a great time at the circus. After the clown showed up, everybody was a little, kind of wary, got into their space, and it broke that sense of community. And that's when I started realizing just how insidious and damaging those little jerks are. So I started doing research, and what I have found, and what I'm actually going to do here to educate anybody that's watching this, is just how this clown menace has been with us almost since we left the caves. I would say even before that. So I'll do this episode. I might do other episodes if I come across other interesting things. Who knows? But what I'm going to do in this episode is I'm going to talk about when humans and clowns first interacted and just how devastating that was. So I'm going to go ahead and well, first let's address things like where are clowns from? Hell, I don't know, man. What do I look like, a freaking clown expert? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they're not natural. Some people say like, oh, it's a human genetic mutation, and I find that shit offensive, man. Are you trying to tell me that a clown has anything, even on the genetic level, in common with a human being? I would say no, man. That's insulting. There's no way in hell that we have any sort of common ancestor, any sort of commonality at the genetic level. That is wrong. Other people say like, "Oh, clowns are from Satan." Eh, Man, I don't think we need to go there, man. Because when you think about it, any sort of religion says Big G created the entire universe. You're trying to tell me, including Satan, and you're trying to tell me that Big G created clowns, dude. Crusades have started for less, right? So don't even go there. Don't even go there. Um, what I would say, and actually, I'm not going to spoil the movie or whatever, but the movie came out called Killer Clowns from Outer Space, and they pretty much go into the origins of clowns. It's actually not really a movie so much as a public service announcement, I would say. But they go into the clowns came out from another dimension and came down from space. So I guess I did kind of just spoil the movie for you. But anyway, watch it. Great movie. And even Stephen King gets into this when he goes through his old It story. So there's a lot of really good, solid academic research out there that shows that clowns have come from another dimension, the evil dimension, just a clown dimension, if you can imagine that, if you can wrap your brain around that and not give yourself nightmares for the next 30 years. And that's where I come down. I think it's pretty obvious. And since I just said this on the internet, we know it's true, right? Clowns come from a different dimension, a dimension that has nothing in common with reality. How they came here, I don't know. Why they came here. They came here to mess with us. Exactly. It's exactly what they're doing. That's their whole modus operandi is to mess with humans. And so, yeah, that's where they came from. They're here. So when did we first interact with clowns, and why was it so devastating? Well, I'm going to go ahead and show you some evidence of our first interactions with clowns. And here you see it. Got ourselves a caveman, big burly dude, naive, innocent, lives in caves. Sure, he gets eaten by short-faced cave bears every now and then, but it's a pretty good life, right? And then you got this freaking clown showing up just out of the blue to mess with him. And he rightfully looks horrified, right? So how do we know this happened? Well, first off, I'm telling you, and it's on the internet, so we know that's true. But second off, there is actually an interesting event called the Toba Event. Now, if you're not familiar with this, when people, scientists, geneticists were looking through the human genome, they noticed that about 75,000 years ago, humans reached a bottleneck, a genetic bottleneck. And what I mean by that is that, let's say there were like 100,000 humans and suddenly there was a mass extinction event. And we came down to anywhere between, I think, between 4 to 10,000 human beings were left. So something killed off a lot of our ancient ancestors, most of them, the vast majority of them. And you can track that by looking at the human genome and kind of track it back and say, yeah, generally when it happened even. So now scientists, they all say like, oh, it happened because of a volcano. There was a super volcano erupted and, blah, 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 cut out the sun, starvation, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I don't buy that. You're going to tell me that a freaking volcano is going to exterminate humanity? No, I genuinely do not believe that. But you know what did almost wipe out humanity? Freaking clowns. I know exactly what happened. They came on Earth, they popped out, they saw these naive cave people running around, being eaten by short-faced cave bears and all that kind of stuff. And they thought, hey, dude, this is hilarious. Let's go mess with these people. So they went over and they started doing their balloon tricks and all this kind of stuff. And the cave people had no idea. They were culturally unsophisticated. They had no idea how to deal with this. They had no defense against it. So clowns keep messing with them. Oh, pull my finger. Oh, look, we're running around in this little stupid car, wasting your time, so you can't go out and try to freaking hunt mammoths and stuff. So they ended up starving to death because they couldn't because they were unsophisticated folks. Let's just go ahead and say that they were unsophisticated, and they couldn't figure out the damn clown car thing. even though they didn't really have clowns. So I guess they were probably just running around a boulder, and the cave people were all, befuddled by that. But anyway, so they freaking starved to death. They got all so confused, they got depressed. They probably, a lot of them committed suicide. Some of them probably got so damn confused that they wandered off cliffs and stuff, like in vast numbers, like little hordes of like caveman lemmings just rushing off the nearest cliff. And so the end, actually, it doesn't really matter how they died. What mattered is that most of them did. Most of them could not mentally handle this, and so they're no longer with us. And that was our first interaction with clowns. It was devastating. We were circling the drain there, folks. We almost cashed out as a species for good after this. But luckily, there are some silver linings to this. Luckily, every one of our ancestors that survived this Toba event, this extinction event, is now genetically and mentally prepared to deal with clownishness. And what that means is that again, we're not, clowns are pretty evil. So that, you're not going to have 100% immunity to their tomfoolery by any stretch of the imagination. But at least, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing this. I think, this is horrifying enough. You get the gist. Freaking clown, right? But at least everybody that survived that has a little bit of resistance to clownish tomfoolery, which means we're not going to be committing suicide and running off cliffs in mass numbers like our ancestors did. So that's good. So hopefully it's not going to be an extinction event anymore. Um, and also like culturally we can deal with it. We can actually, isolate clownish behavior and recognize it for what it is, and not let it drive our entire culture to extinction anymore. Because we tried that once, and damned if we didn't like dodge a bullet and get out of there. So that's the first interaction that we had with clowns, and it was devastating. And nobody knows about it. Everybody's like, "Oh, it's a freaking super volcano." It's not a super volcano, man. It's freaking clowns, right? Lots of clowns running around doing their little boulder, stupid clown card trick. So I'm going to go and leave this with that. I mean, there's a whole bunch of, and they're still with us. I hate to say it, man. I mean, granted, they almost went extinct when we did because, like any predator, if it requires a large group of prey animals to sustain its population. And when we almost kicked the bucket, well, clowns almost went the same way. In fact, now I think about it, maybe that's why they stopped doing clown crap. Is because they knew that we needed to rebuild our numbers so that they could feed on us, their little silliness. That's actually disturbing. That's going to wake me up at 3 in the morning. I guarantee freaking to you. But they didn't go extinct. They're still with us. And I think if you look back through history, there's several key instances that will pop up where they've actually influenced our development as a species and caused problems. Um, and if I ever get another wild hair, maybe I'll go into those. Maybe I'll talk about the clownish influence in ancient Egypt, or in the Mayan civilization, World War I, World War II. Definitely got involved in that crap. But anyway, hopefully you have found this informative and you're a little warier and wiser about this danger. And if you are, my work here's done. My work here's done. I can leave this planet with a clear conscience. And if you're interested in more, maybe I'll post a couple more episodes on just to keep the flame of knowledge going. Unless the clownish mafia takes me out, in which case you'll never see me again. Right? Anyway, stay safe. If you see a clown, get the hell away from it, and definitely do not laugh or trust these bastards. Guarantee they don't have your best interest in mind. You have a good day. Hopefully no nightmares.